Stephanie, good question. I don't want to get this wrong. So, can a school system work with a child who needs more time in ABA? And let me answer that first part. Well, I think the times offered for ABA on certain days are during school hours, so that would mean that you're getting private ABA, but the time slot that they're offering are during the school hours. So therefore, let's say you're offering the school system or giving the school system a script for ABA services, and you're asking for them to accommodate his school day. Or adjust his school day in order for him to take advantage of the private ABA. If I'm understanding that correctly, and I've been told before that my child can't do school part-time, basically. Well, my question on that is, who told you that before? There are a million idiots, and then 500,000 more besides that are out there giving bad information. So I don't know whether that came from who. It's just ignorance. It's not anything. That's all curable. That's what I love about ignorance. What's difficult is when you have somebody in a position of authority that is confidently ignorant. At that point, confidently ignorant is different than just ignorant. Because those people, are not that jazzed about considering other perspectives or considering that they're wrong. So let's answer this. So number one, can a school system work with a child who needs more time in ABA? Now, look, my own child needed ABA. We did not go get private services. We brought the BCBA into the school, and as part of my child's IEP program, trained my staff to be basically the capacity of an RBT or my child's therapist, overseen and supported by the BCBA. All right. Train the staff to competency. Now, the aides and the teacher, when they received this training, did a very excellent, effective job, just as well as the private therapist that worked for the BCBA in the private clinic. So the services that we received for our daughter and have always received since she entered kindergarten have been school-based ABA services. And, there was no need for us to take her out. And so I'm one of these believers that schools should be providing these services, and the BCBA that the school either employs or contracts with needs to consider your child the client instead of the school the client, because there's a big difference between the two. And what you're looking for is competency-based training for your staff instead of fairy dust, consultative, sprinkling of, explanations in a very complex area of understanding, which is behavior, and especially individualized toward your son's skill acquisition needs and deficits. And the other thing is, many schools completely misunderstand the need with regards to ABA. And if it's done competently and if it's done ethically, then I think it's a great thing. I don't just, because what a lot of people think ABA is, in the wrong hands, it's not a good thing. Done in a half-ass kind of way, no, not effective, not good. And I understand why some people may have a bad taste in their mouth for it. But at the same time, done ethically and done in a competent manner, and with the purpose of skill acquisition, with the purpose of independence and expansion of skills. And yes, I think it's great. But this is where a lot of schools get it wrong, is they only look at it as a tool to mitigate behavior or to address behavior or modify behavior when that isn't what we're trying to do. It's a dual approach of behavior reduction through skill acquisition. Okay, skill acquisition, increase in communication, behavior reduction. Okay, they've got to work hand in hand. So a lot of schools will concentrate on the behavior side without looking at the needs in the skill acquisition side, and that's where the ABA comes in. And so, you know, that was, so the reason I'm inserting that, and I know that wasn't your question, is that it can be done inside of your school. Regardless of what they tell you, it can be done. Now, I don't know which school system you live in. I did see on your profile that you're somewhere over by Tuscaloosa, so I don't know whether you're actually in one of the Tuscaloosa schools or whether you're just outside in Jefferson County, and if so, God bless you. Because they're until they get rid of their director, Jefferson County is horrible, along with their attorney. And I'm not saying that they're not capable. I'm saying horrible from the aspect that, just the kind of leader that person is, along with their attorney, is just combative. It's just combative. It's just hellish combativeness and that confident ignorance that I'm talking about. Masquerading as intelligence. That's what absolutely throws me off anytime I have to deal with them. But if you're on one of the other counties on the opposite side of Tuscaloosa, then it's just the source. It's just getting to a point of clear communication and negotiation. Now, if you have a script, they can't really tell you that you can't do it. And I don't know how old your son is. But I mean, for example, my child, it's an IEP team decision. Quite frankly, whether or not your child can go half days or should go half days, I mean, my child only went to school from 8 to noon, but that's because we had data collection to show that she had spikes in behavior after 12 o'clock, which typically there's a lot of downtime between 12 and 3 or 12 and 2:30. And there was really no structure or benefit to my daughter being there. There was a lot of need that the staff had to do with regards to paperwork and getting the other students prepped, including my daughter. So why have her there if she didn't need to be? So we packed her schedule to where it was very structured, and she ended up, but we did all of this with that concerted effort to try to get that combination right to reduce the behavior. And we didn't modify the behavior, we just modified her schedule and we modified our approach. Okay? The adults changed. And through the adult modifying and changing the schedule, my child made progress. And we knew that this was the window to do it because she had enough afternoon. And there was just too much activity going on. So, actually, and in that time period between 8 and noon, I mean, she was making massive amounts of progress and continued on that trajectory for years and still is on that. Now, they're going to sit there and throw compulsory education at you, saying that they're required by state law. I don't know how old your child is, but that doesn't even kick in until 7. So I don't know what they would be smoking crack about if your child is under that age. Other than the fact that, there's this myth going on in the minds of every educator that somehow your child has to be there, 7 hours a day in order to benefit. And, there's maybe some science out there that might hold true for neurotypical children, but children with IEPs, children, depending on the nature of their deficits, depending on the nature of their needs, no, they don't need to be there. In fact, 7 hours, you might as well be a prison sentence to some of these children. And that's the thing. That's why it's individualized. And the IEP team would make that decision. And you don't need a doctor's note saying that your child only needs a half day. The IEP team supersedes all of that. And as long as the IEP team agrees, then yes, your child can have a half day schedule. And if they give you a hard time, if you have a script, if they give you a hard time, then I would sit there and say, well, then, if you're not going to let me leave to take my child to private services, then I want you to provide those services inside of this program during this time period. Thank you very much. And here's the behavior analyst. You guys pay for the tab and, here you go. And I've seen more than a few schools in the last couple months that when the parents approach them with that strategy, all of a sudden they're a little bit more flexible about you taking your child and a few times a week in order to get a therapy that they don't want to provide, which they should provide because it's part of a free and appropriate public education. So therefore you shouldn't be pulling out of pocket in order to provide your son what are the peer-reviewed scientific data says and evidence works for our children. Keep me updated. I'm interested.